Today's case has been solved, and the family given very hard answers in a heartbreaking case. Before we get into it, try to imagine what it would be like to wait 34 years for answers if one of your loved ones was stolen. Try to imagine what it would be like to jump through legal hoops to get access to information when that information should have been shared with family members decades before. Try to imagine that once you get the information, key parts of it are redacted. Well, Barbara Keam's family did not have to imagine that. They lived it, and no other family should ever have to live it. Barbara Keam from Poplar River First Nation was only 21 when her life was taken. She was a newlywed living on the Norway House Cree Nation in northern Manitoba, where she moved to live with her new husband and her young son. The marriage lasted 1 year, a year to the day. On her first anniversary, June 7th, 1981, Barbara was found beaten to death at her home. One of the ladies who dressed Barbara's body would tell Barbara's sister Raven Thundersky that she had knife wounds throughout her body. There were different versions of the story Thundersky believed. She did not believe that her husband killed her. She believed that the husband had been the one to go get Barbara as she lay injured, and then he carried her back to the house. She would say that the husband did not speak English and was not provided a translator during the investigation when he signed a confession letter. Thundersky believed that others had beaten her sister and left her in a field to die. It's a terrible thing to have to believe. The Norway House RCMP would charge her husband Bruce with murder. He was released on bail, and then he hung himself. From that day until a manila envelope finally appeared in 2016, the family struggled to find answers to what happened to their loved one on the day her life ended. Until that envelope arrived, the last contact they had with the police was in 2005, when they were told the case was closed. They had only each other, Thundersky would say, to do the best they could to make sense of Barbara's death. They felt cheated out of a lifetime with her, the sister who would sing along with the radio, who had a gentle way and a good heart. The only official document they had until then was a death certificate that said cause of Barbara's death was violence. Understandably, they found that very difficult to live with without having all the answers. Sadly, Raven Thundersky would pass away in 2015, not having received the information she fought for. She was an advocate for women, involved in the call for the MMIWG inquiry. She was also an advocate for folks who had asbestos-linked cancers. Zonolite was a material that was used in insulation. It contained a fire-resistant mineral called vermiculite, which itself can contain traces of asbestos. It was used in hundreds of indigenous homes, and the company that manufactured it settled a lawsuit over asbestos-related cancers. Raven herself would die of lung cancer, a battle she fought for 10 years. She was fighting for her sister and others like her when she advocated for an inquiry, and she was fighting for her family when she fought to obtain information about Barbara's death. It took a CBC reporter to file an access to information request in April 2015 for answers to finally come. Not right away. Despite short deadlines on these requests, documents did not arrive for a year. At first, the reporter was told no documents may exist at all, given the length of time that had passed. When Thundersky passed, her sister Debbie Farrell would continue the fight. 350 pages. 350 pages that should have been shared with family members decades earlier would contain many of the answers the family sought. It would have told them that there was no knife wounds on Barbara, and there were some abrasions that might have been mistaken for knife wounds. Barbara took a lot of wounds in the beating, and so there were many abrasions. The case file contained Bruce's statement and the statements of other witnesses. It contained an autopsy report and photographs. The file painted the picture of what happened that night before and the night that Barbara died. That she had been at a local pub with friends while Bruce was drinking elsewhere. That at 1 a.m. Bruce arrived to look for his wife. They finally met up at 3 a.m. and made their way home. Bruce admitted beating his wife during the walk home. She would suffer a traumatic brain injury. He carried her the rest of the way into a canoe for the crossing to the island where they lived. He would say they got home around 7:30 in the morning and he laid her in the bed, where she later died somewhere around 10:30 a.m. After reading the file, the picture of what happened finally made sense for the family. They learned that when Bruce took his own life, he left letters, one for chief and counsel, another for his lawyer. In one letter, he claimed to have a death pact with his wife as an explanation for why he did what he did. Without a trial, because there was no accused any longer, they lost the opportunity to be given answers in court. There was no reason they should have had to wait 34 years to obtain them, but wait they did. And finally, they had their questions answered, although not completely. Thank you for listening.